All right, well, our next guest is all the way on the other side of the pond. He is the now president of Atheism UK. He's a snappy dresser and snazzy dancer. John Richards, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to do the applause here.
Your applause.
Where's my applause?
Uh-oh.
I can just clap for you.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can do it.
Woo! Cheers! Someone make a whistle.
Thank you for credible.
There we go. There's an applause.
Oh, okay. We got to start.
Live audience.
Thanks, audience. They took a second to get here, but they showed up.
That's great.
You don't have the same audience we used to.
It's where atheists gather. This is Relay TV.
So thank you so much for joining us all the way from across where you guys are probably ahead of schedule and ahead of time because you can tell us what's going to happen. You're actually forward in time, aren't you?
You're so behind the times, you guys.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, wow.
For those of us who may not know, might not be familiar with who John Richards is, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a quick bio as to who John Richards is.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a retired science teacher who can't stop.
There we go.
It's been my mission to explain to people how things work, and I don't see any reason why I shouldn't continue to do that. I mean, the alternative when you retire is to learn how to wear a pair of slippers, smoke a pipe, and watch daytime TV. That's got no attraction.
Sounds like a ball.
It's got no attraction for me because I always want to be doing something, and the new technology, what we're using today, enables that to happen. So I've been continuing what I consider to be my mission that I've had pretty much all my life. And of course, the side effect of this is that people start to question their beliefs. It's nothing to do with me, you know.
No. It's true that education and science will make you question a lot of things. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us about Atheism UK, because you know what, the show is obviously focused much more in North America. We have a Canadian American collaboration. Our audience is mostly Canadian American, but we do have some listeners internationally here and there. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of interesting. I always wondered, what it's like to be an atheist on the other side, in Europe, in the UK, and all that. So maybe you'd be so kind to explain that to us.
Sure. Well, it's very easy because the population of the UK in the most recent poll came out as 51% non-believers.
Wow.
Oh, very similar to here.
Yeah. The US just came the same way, didn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it was similar because it's a little more split than that, but we're getting up there. Like the numbers are increasing.
Yeah. I don't know if it's 51% yet. I think it's 50.
I think it's for the first
But it also, you're talking about the whole of the United States. It depends on where you're at in the United States, because down here in the South, I don't tell anyone at work I'm an atheist because I could possibly lose my job.
Yes.
You're in Texas. You would lose your job. You absolutely would.
Why? What? Wow.
I mean, when my job sends an email to celebrate National Prayer Day.
Wow, I work with Christians. They wouldn't do that.
I mean, they're not saying anything about the job, and this has nothing to do with that job, but, like just in the South, not even me particular, but people, it's happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be denied service at Chick-fil-A, wouldn't you?
I doubt it.
Yeah, they'll take your money.
They'd only give you one Chick-fil-A sauce, like some kind of asshole.
I mean, if you drive down here in the South and you drive by a Chick-fil-A, guaranteed there's at least 4 cars in the drive-thru. Constantly.
They don't have those here.
No, we don't have them. So John, in the UK, I mean, this is interesting because if I'm correct, the US has a secular constitution. The UK does not. I mean, they do have the Anglican Church, which is quite predominant in the UK.
Yes-ish. It's a legacy. It's a historical legacy from the days of Henry VIII, who, of course, wanted to divorce his wife more than once, and the Pope at the time wouldn't let him. So what did he do? He set himself up as our local Pope. And since then, we've had an established church. But in practice, it's a dinosaur. It's more than a dinosaur. It's a dodo. The church-going population is dwindling so desperately that the interesting story, the Archbishop of Canterbury is on holiday. while he's away, the Archbishop of York is in charge. And he's come up with this scheme to deregister all the parishes and the clergy that serve them, the vicars and other clergy, and give the job of gathering together a community, a congregation, to specially selected evangelical types in their own homes.
What?
I know. It's been described as by a Christian who writes in the Church Times as the church throwing off its buildings and its staff and running naked into a world that couldn't care less.
The least popular streaking in the world.
Wow.
Right.
And, not only that, but they've been trying to take over our schools because they realise that since the few remaining regular churchgoers are soon to be not for this world, they've got to start indoctrinating children more heavily than they have before.
Right.
And unfortunately, you know how democracy is a sort of a blunt weapon, a blunt tool?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
We've had a series of governments that are not representative and that have been supporting the church in their ambition to set up faith schools.
Wow.
When I was a boy, we had a lot of schools that were called C of E schools, Church of England schools. But it was, as I said, it was a very tepid sort of religion. And nobody minded. Nobody minded because it wasn't trying to indoctrinate anybody with anything. And if it did, it didn't succeed. Everybody more or less laughed at it. And I don't know if you've seen much British television, but there's been a succession of satirical representations of vicars and bishops and things. It's worth catching some British comedy.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah,
I love British comedy.
the best. It's so good.
But recently, although these were churches in name or church schools in name, they were secular schools in practice.
Okay.
But recently, the government has permitted faith schools to be properly faith schools by enabling them to select entry to those who belong to their particular faith. Initially, they could only select, I think it was 30% of the intake, but more recently, the rule has changed, and they can now select 100% of the intake.
Goodness.
Now, what this means in practice is that because of the localities that schools serve, very often there's no option available other than a faith school to send your children to.
Yes.
And most pertinently, one of the key people, I think what is she described as? She might be the president actually at the moment, but Alice Roberts, who is quite a television personality. She does a lot of presentation on anatomy and archaeology and other scientific things. She lives in London, and she's, as I said, she's a president of Humanism UK. She can't send her child to a secular school. There's not one near enough.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Now,
That's sad.
Now, in the UK, I mean, let's make a comparison here. In Canada, for example, I know that some, depending on province, from province to province, it's different. But here in BC, it's 50% of the funding for religious schools actually comes from the government.
Mhm.
In Alberta, for example, it's 100. In the States, I'm assuming it's 0. Ben, Bradley, can you guys confirm that?
No, no,
I
they
can't confirm.
no, they redid the whole thing with voucher systems because of that white
Yeah, Betsy
shit,
DeVos chick?
Betsy DeVos, thank you. Yeah, she did a voucher program where basically they subsidize schools that you have to pay for to get into anyway. Which is
There are still schools here where the government is paying part of what's going on with them, even if they're full-on religious schools.
Yeah.
But so
General in BC that
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
These are subsidized schools. These are the schools that are paid for by taxes. Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone.
In the UK as well.
Of course, you've always been able to set up a private school to whatever
Sure.
flavour you like, as long as you pass Ofsted, the Office of Standards for Education inspection, which is you have to get your Queen's what's the word? No, you have to get I can't remember the word, but you have to be on a register that's approved by Her Majesty's inspectors. That's another interesting thing, because in some parts of London, where there's a Jewish community, they've discovered recently sort of underground Jewish schools that have been being held in big houses, and the children have been dragooned to go there and have been kept for very long periods of the day so that their parents can go out to work. And they haven't been following the approved syllabus. They've been teaching all sorts of things, like you were saying with Kent Hovind and his creationism.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
We've discovered these now, and we're trying to shut them down.
Oh, good.
That was my next question, because we were talking about Ken Hovind. Creationism. I always get the impression creationism was mainly a U.S. phenomenon that's kind of trying to be exported in other countries. Has creationism in its present form made its way into the UK? Is it a threat?
Yes, it has. I regret having to say this, but just up the road from here is a sort of a branch of Answers in Genesis.
Oh,
And,
What?
and a few years ago, I debated a couple of their representatives. They're I don't know whether to call them pastors, but clergy that have affiliated with Answers in Genesis.
Jesus.
You can see those debates. They're on video.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll have to put some of those in the show notes.
Yes, definitely.
So I guess my question is, the Queen being the head of the church, and the church,
I didn't
seems
know that.
losing its. Yeah, she's the head of the church.
He's our Pope.
She's a
So
very
a woman is
holy,
in charge.
holy woman.
A
So
woman
we'll give him that.
That's right.
Direct
That was-
descendant of Mary. You know.
Real.
We know the Anglican Church was powerful politically in the UK. What's the status of the church now as its influence into politics?
Unfortunately, we still have quite a lot of church influence at the top, because, for example, in the House of Lords, which is our Senate, although the actual powers are different, but it's our Senate, and the church has 22 guaranteed seats for their bishops.
Wow.
Goodness.
Holy
We don't
shit.
want it.
Guaranteed seats.
Wow.
Yes.
So these people are not even elected; they're just appointed.
No. Yes.
That would make corruption so easy. Like, it seems like-
Fortunately, the House of Lords doesn't have a great deal of power.
Okay.
Oh,
All they can do is inspect and modify the bills that are passed up to them, pass them back down, and it's the House of Commons that has the power.
So
oh,
it's-
okay.
The House of Lords is the House of
Fair
Sober
enough.
Sick Look, is what they call it, right?
Yeah, it's the House of what would you call it? Checking and I don't know, approving.
Rubber stamp.
Basically, lords being lords, right?
Well, yes, that's a bit of a misnomer now, because although they used to be lords, dubbed by the Queen or inherited a title from ancestors, now I don't know how many of them it is. It might be approaching 50% of them have been appointed for life. So they're life peers, and they were appointed by previous or current prime ministers.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So I'm assuming in the House of Lords, a conservative prime minister will appoint conservative lords.
Yes.
Well, sure.
So it's a bit like the Senate here in Canada.
Yeah.
The Senate in the U.S. doesn't work the same way.
No, there's
No.
They're voted in.
Yeah.
Our Supreme Court has lifetime appointments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
That's,
yeah.
That's a clearer picture. And when it comes to the general population, you said earlier during the show that 51% now are non-believers or are part of the nuns. But what's the general tone of the population? Is it something that's on the forefront of the public's mind, the effect of religion in their policies in their everyday life, or is something that's basically ignored like everywhere else?
Apathy.
Yeah.
It's the prevailing emotion, I think. But although you said, and it's true, that 51% polled as non-believers, that's an underestimate, because if you do it by another test, not rather than just asking them to tick a box, or check a box, you would say, wouldn't you? Rather than just asking them to do that, if you ask them other questions like, are you a regular churchgoer? Do you make donations to a church charity? Do you pray regularly? If you ask them questions like that, then you find that it's probably something more approaching 80% who are not actively religious.
Right.
But of course, since the 1950s, the makeup of the population, the demographic of the UK has changed enormously. Mm-hmm. Whereas we used to be pretty pure white Anglo-Saxons and Anglican Christians, now we have significant populations. We always had a few little hotspots of Jews, but we've now got mosque-building Muslims, we've got Hindu temples, we've got, because of course the outcome of the closing down of the colonies and turning them into Commonwealth resulted in giving a lot of them permission to come and live in the motherland, which is fine. I'm very much in favor of a multicultural population, but the thing is, they do tend to bring their religion with them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, like you were saying, it depends where you go. I'm sure you could go to areas in the city of Bolton, for example, where you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who's not a Muslim.
Interesting. It kind of reminds me of Canadian comedian Russell Peters.
I love him.
Who's Indian, and he said, when all of a sudden the British decided to leave, he said, wait a minute, you can't just leave. We're coming with you now. It's like, we hear a lot here of interesting stories, especially from conservative politicians, about minorities in the UK. You hear about no-go zones and stuff like that. Is there any truth to any of that? Is there really places in the UK where it's dangerous to just be,
No. That's typical. I'm assuming that you're talking about Republican politicians.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's typical Republican propaganda.
Okay.
Yep, it's not true.
So there is
I mean, there's
that all of a sudden you're going to be attacked by roving bands of Muslims in the UK or something.
No. I was looking at the crime figures earlier today because I was in a disagreement with somebody in one of my Facebook groups, an American who's joined one of our Facebook groups, and the subject turned to gun ownership and police and so on.
Of course.
And yes, indeed, because he's very right wing, and so I threw him some figures, and he was saying that in 2020 the US lost something like 200 police killed on duty. So I checked it out. 146 of them died from COVID.
Oh shit. It was on duty though. They were on duty.
So I mean, it does count. It does count because how the families get paid out, because he got COVID on duty, so he died of COVID on duty, so he gets paid out differently because of that.
Well, that's the thing. He saw the virus approaching, he started shooting at it, and the bullets were shooting for the virus. And oh my god!
The virus totally dodged all the bullets.
Well, and I've said it before, where
Matrix
if you
style.
watch international TV, you watch a American cop show, and it's very different than, say, a cop show in New Zealand or a cop show in UK.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like in the UK, you have one officer who's trained to use a gun, and that's it.
Yes. Well, let me just finish this little anecdote, because I then looked up the British stats. And do you know how many cops we lose on the job? It's an average of one a year.
Goodness.
Holy shit. For the whole
Were they
country?
from COVID too?
Yes.
No, the whole country. And
Oh my god.
most of them, they're not shot because we don't have that many guns. You know, guns are pretty much illegal here. They're not shot. Most of them die by accident. They fall off a roof or their car runs into something.
Yeah, like an automobile
ask.
accident. Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to ask if they were all pushed out windows. You know, because that's Archie Bunker's thing. You know?
No. It's that one police officer you think he can do parkour, and he's running off the rooftop, and he just jumps, but
Jumps
doesn't
and
quite make
misses.
it.
He's chasing a parkour criminal. Yes.
Right. Parkour criminals.
Oh, that needs to be a show right there.
No,
Right.
Parkour criminals.
Well,
I'm just
technically,
saying.
there's even more death in the James Bond movie that they're actually in the UK for real.
Yeah. But you're right. If you watch an American cop show, it's all shooting. Every few minutes you hear guns going off. If you watch a British cop show, we had one. What was it called? It was set on the Channel Islands, and it was a lovely historical sort of cuddly sort of show. And he drove an antique car, you know.
Right.
Right.
Very
Nice.
Mayberry.
They're having tea with the criminal. Now you think so? You should know this.
It's all club
You know-
fights. It's
you know-
club
you know-
fights.
This is even reflected in the language because when computers were invented, they were mostly taken up in the US, in California. That was where most of the gestation of the technology we're using tonight happened. So the language is all aggressive. I mean, you boot it into action.
Yes.
You get kicked off a show.
Yeah.
And then you grab something,
Yep.
or you think of all the language that you use that's associated with computers.
The
it's
screen capture.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, if we had carried on in this country, because we started with some computers, primitive ones, even before you did, but if we carried on, we would have had things like, you switch it on, you turn it up.
Yeah. It's not reboot, it's restart.
The language would be entirely different.
I totally agree.
No, it's true. As an international observer, when you look at American shows, even shows that are scientific shows, remember the old MythBuster show?
Yeah, I love
I
it.
used to love that show, but they always had to end with an explosion.
Oh,
and I was
every
why? Why do you need to always blow up something?
Because
Blowing up
explosions
stuff is fun.
equal freedom.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
the
but you-
guy on this hill. Explosions are fun, and I want to see them every day of my life.
The myth was, can this car go faster on? I don't know if you put the tailgate down for the pickup truck. Is it more economical to have it up or down? They busted the myth, and then they finished by blowing up the pickup truck.
Well, of course they do.
It
Because
doesn't.
no one's gonna watch the hatch of a pickup truck, and they're not gonna watch that unless the truck explodes at the end. Okay, I'm just
Okay, but my favorite is the difference between reality competition shows in the US versus the UK. Because in the US, they're competing for all this money and people stab each other in the back and there's all this drama. Meanwhile, I'm watching this British pottery show where they're like, oh, let me help you out with that. We've got this. And if you see that, it's on HBO Max and the show is fantastic, by the way.
unless it's Gordon Ramsay. He was like, "Are you a fucking idiot sandwich?" Yes, you are. Yes.
It's not just the competition shows like the baking shows, but it's also the quiz shows. I mean, if you watch some of our quiz shows, they are graduate standard, and there's very little to win. You know, there's no thousands of dollars of prizes.
Yes.
There's this glass bowl.
They're doing it for bragging rights. They're like, I am the winner. Yeah.
Although I do watch a competition show on MTV where they're bringing in a lot of UK contestants, and man, you guys are good at backstabbing when you need to.
Wait, Sabrina, you watch the challenge too?
Shh, maybe. Yes.
Fantastic.
Isn't it great?
So much drama.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to get the impression that I'm anti-American in any way.
Oh no, we're okay with that.
Yeah, me too. No, I am.
I've got a lot of friends in America, and I've been all over the place in America, and I love you guys.
We love you too.
Yeah, but you love us like you love that wild cousin who's drunk at barbecues.
Oh yeah, great fun.
Barbecues? What's that?
So you get a grill and you get some meat.
America's
Yeah.
great for a visit, but I wouldn't want to stay. You know.
No, yeah, definitely.
How do you stop the rain putting the fire out?
It doesn't rain there.
More gasoline. You just keep the lighter fluid. You got to just just keep squirting.
If the flame isn't 3 to 4 feet tall, you fucked up.
You're not doing it right.
Yeah. You guys are awesome.
So, John, when you look at atheism in the UK as compared to the rest of the world, you think your country is moving more towards secularism, or is there like in the US a bit of a resurgence of faith coming back and trying to, I don't know, do a scorched earth technique? You know, that's what seems to be happening in the US anyway.
They're trying to fight back.
They know they're diminishing, and they're fighting back really, really hard. Is that the case in the UK as well?
Yeah. This is what I was saying about the Archbishop of York, who's trying to reorganize the whole of the Church of England so that people get to meet. Because the Archbishop of Canterbury is the most evangelical Archbishop we've ever had. So, whereas our previous Archbishops were quite content to swan around having tea with the Queen sometimes and not do very much, except maybe come on the radio and pontificate a bit. This one is a missionary. He wants to convert people, especially children. So whereas we've been through pretty much all of last century in a nosedive, religion's been going down. Is that the right way for a graph on your screen? No, it's that way, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
Now,
left to right.
Now they've reached the point of no return, and they've decided they've got to do something about it. And meanwhile, the immigrant communities are building up, so they're seeing each other as a threat now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why we need Atheism UK. We probably didn't need Atheism UK until 2000, and Atheism UK was started in I think 2008. When the need became apparent.
So what does Atheism UK do? Well, I mean, it's you guys are much more than just a group of atheists getting together and having coffee, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
We are, yes, indeed. In fact, it's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. What do we do? Mm-hmm. And we're having a council meeting next month to decide that very thing. because we haven't, to be honest, we haven't been as actively campaigning as we should do. And there are issues in this country that do need combating. And I mentioned the bishops in the House of Lords.
Yes.
We have a BBC that gives privileges to Church of England and other theists to have airtime. We don't want that. And we have these terrible faith schools that are on the rise. We want to solve that. Let's get back to schools that are secular, especially if we're paying for them. You know, it's my money.
Absolutely.
Right. I have a question real quick. Are you familiar at all, like, with what was going on in France as far as enforced secularism?
Yes. The French are much more authoritarian than we are.
Yeah.
We're a nation of, or historically, we've been a nation of not quite diplomats, but sort of bordering in that direction. Somebody who wants to come to a compromise solution.
Right.
Whereas the French say, you know, that their police carry guns, for example, and they say, these are the rules, you should obey them. The difference being that in this country, if there's a rule, people do obey it because there's very little enforcement. So you'll find we're religious, if I can use that word, about stopping for red lights. The other day, I was carrying a friend of mine who's from Turkey, where the driving is not quite so decorous, and we saw somebody shoot a red light in this country, and he said, "That's the first one I've ever seen here." And he's been living here now for what, I don't know, well, his daughter's 6, so it must have been 7 years. So where was I going with this?
I have to like check, even if it's a green light. I'm checking.
Yeah.
Somebody's coming because you don't know here, man.
Well, that's right.
Sometimes people are like, "Fuck it, I don't care."
I stopped for green lights just to make sure.
Yeah.
In France, you've got this much more authoritarian government that issues edicts, and they are. I mean, you can understand why they do this, and I'm sympathetic towards it because they've got Muslims and right-wing, almost Nazis and communists in their political movements, and they want to keep them small, I suppose. So they've issued instructions about not having to wear hijabs and burqas and things, and of course it's illegal to teach a religion in a French school, a French state school. There is no religion taught. So yes, that's the difference.
Well, I mean, I know the French have been hardcore about like not letting other languages invade their language too.
Yeah, as the French Canadian on the board, I could say that, and it's actually perpetuated in Quebec as well. They're very protective of their language and their culture in that sense. I get the impression when you go to France, they'll basically say they're authoritarian, but in a way of like, oh, come on, this is France. This is how we do things. Just do it.
Yes,
you know, don't question it. Just freaking do it.
Just be French.
Just be naked. Yeah, this is a naked. Just be naked. You know,
but they're enforcing like things like you can't wear a hijab in public, and you can't even have a cross around your neck, or like if you're a Christian, you know, things like you. It's really weird to have enforced secularism without religious freedom. You know what I mean? I feel like that is an odd.
Right, they went the complete opposite way.
Yeah, and it just seems so strange to me to where it's like, and I think that a lot of Christians and other religious folks see what's happening. They're like, that's what's going to happen. Oh man, it's coming.
We're being prosecuted just like we always were.
Yeah, you know, it's like
I love their Académie Française that determines what should be a correct French word and what shouldn't.
That's
because
right.
they've been fighting a losing battle for decades.
Yeah.
Because they simply don't have a lot of words that were originated in the English-speaking world, you know? So they've got to adopt them and just pronounce them slightly different. So, for example, if you go to certain towns in France, you can go to a restaurant that's called Le Lunch.
Le Lunch.
Lunch. Oh, wow.
It's
clever.
And it really urines them off that they've got to admit that English is the lingua franca.
Yeah, I mean it is, and English is a very good language also for business because I always saw English as a very basic language.
Yeah,
so it makes
universal.
it makes it much more easily universal. French is much more complex as a language.
The reason that English is such a good language is because we had this collision between the French invading from the south and the Danes invading from the north, and we couldn't cope, you know, so we said, scrap all this. We don't want declensions. We don't want conjugations. We don't want genders. It's nonsense. We've ended up with perfect language.
I also think one of the
I'm not sure that would be my argument, but yeah.
Americans, you don't speak the real English.
Once you have one word meaning 17 different things, I'm starting to, you know.
I'm gonna learn. I'm fitting to learn you how to speak some real English here.
I think one of the problems that France also had is their immigration standards. They're good and all that, but what they've done is they've kind of created ghettos. So they've put the Muslim population in one little area instead of doing a proper integration within the population. Mm-hmm. And right now they're reaping the benefits. Fruit. The bad fruit that we've cultivated essentially.
They're reaping the storm.
Yeah, not
there you go.
even religiously, but if you look at communities, and if you even have blended socioeconomic statuses, it's actually beneficial for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and France didn't do that, unfortunately, and right now they're kind of feeling the pain of that.
Yes.
Unfortunately. So, I'm assuming in the UK, when it comes to immigration, the population are much more integrated.
Well, we are, except in a few pockets where it's not a no-go area. It's still safe. I mean, for example, I was invited to go and debate a Muslim at Manchester University back just before lockdown. And this was staged by the Islamic Research and Education Association. And there's a very good video of this debate. I debated, what was his name? Imran Hussain, a lecturer from that locality. And they took this excellent video and had cameras everywhere. I had 2 microphone transmitters on me. So they made this fabulous video. But there's a fear amongst some members of the population that if you could find yourself alone at the wrong time of day in a mostly Muslim area, that is a risky thing to do. And so when they drove me to my hotel, there was 4 of us, the driver and me and 2 young student Muslims in the back. And one of them said to me, "What was the best thing about the event for you?" And I said, "Not getting macheted."
Right.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
But that's the thing. You give me a group of Muslims and a group of evangelicals, I'm going to feel safer around the Muslims, honestly.
Me too.
We're in America, so I don't know.
yeah. Bangladesh, I'm not sure you'd say that.
That's true.
They'd known me long enough to realize that I was joking. They
Right.
worked out how I, my oeuvre, to use a French word. And so we didn't fall out over that. But, considering that there are occasions in this country when Muslim terrorists blow themselves up, or one last year got out of jail, and he'd sworn that he was going to do more harm to these non-believers the moment he got out. And so he was followed by the police, who had surveillance officers in plain clothes. And when he was seen looking at knives, they applied for permission to carry a gun, got that, and they still followed him. He had a tag on, but he went into a shop and he bought a knife with an 8-inch blade, 20 centimeters in this country.
What? Yeah, I'm confused.
You lost me.
He went outside, this is in Streatham, South London. He went outside and stabbed 2 people, then the police shot him. It took 62 seconds from purchase of the knife to his death.
Wow.
But
Shit.
that was brilliant police work, in my view. But
Yeah.
his inquest is now undergoing because, of course, when you have a police shoot a member of the public, it has to be justified. And so that's being heard in London at the moment, his inquest. It's going to take about 3 weeks. But, of course, we know what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
Justified.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
Well,
we also know that the conservative movement is going to take that incident to justify ramping up the degree of fear of the Muslim community.
Absolutely, they will.
Although this individual is obviously an outlier.
Unfortunately, the current trend of politicians all over the world, you can look at examples in Brazil, Mexico, a recent example in the US, our current prime minister, everywhere in the world. What you have now is a generation of politicians who are not primarily concerned for doing good for their country. They're primarily concerned for staying in power themselves.
Yes.
Right.
We call it populism, but it doesn't mean they're doing things that are popular because they want to give the people what they want. It means that they're doing things that are popular in order for them to benefit from the popularity.
Right.
So I'm not a fan of populist politicians.
No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
John,
Nor should any of us be.
Exactly.
It's a quick way to
exactly.
speak up here. John, quick question for you, my friend. Maybe the last question. For the budding atheists, the ones that are coming out in England and they're not exactly sure what to do, because sometimes when you become a new atheist, a new apostate, you kind of feel alone. What would the message from John Richards be for this new atheist?
Well, join us. We've got a website. We've got a YouTube channel. We're active on Facebook and Twitter. It's very easy to join Atheism UK, and we will help you to achieve a secular world. That's what we want, a secular world.
Fantastic.
That's great.
John, a quick plug. If people need to find you and find Atheism UK, where can they go?
Well, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is called Free Thought Productions, and you can email me at, let me give you an email address. Let's say secular, no.
You can't just make it up. I mean,
I've got so many.
Right, just pick
The one I'm going to give you is called Skeptics in the Hub.
Ooh.
That's SK, the American Skeptics, in the Hub, HUB, all one word, at gmail.com.
That's great. Perfect.
There you go.
Right on.
Thank you so much, John, for being on the show with us. But before I let you go, I got to have you say, hi, this is John Richard of Atheism UK, and I took a left at the valley.
I'm John Richards, President of Atheism UK, and I took a left at the valley.
Fantastic.
That was
Bravo.
great. Thank you so much.
Wow.
And that was John Richards of Atheism UK. Nice guy.
Absolutely. That was great.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I'm really glad that we actually took the chance to explore what goes on on the other side of the pond, like they're saying, right?
Yeah, we should get more people from different areas of like Europe.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kevin. Why haven't we gotten more?
It's on you, bro.
This
Yeah.
is your job, Kevin.
it is. It's always on me. I know that. But I'm also glad that we also got a chance to debunk the idea that because this is something that's been bugging for a long time. The idea of there are no go zones in the UK because there's so many Muslims, and if you're a woman walking down there and there's a Muslim neighborhood, they're just gonna throw rocks at you because you don't have a head covered. Yeah, that's all bullshit. That's all conservative bullshit, as per usual.
Right. You say, where's the proof? And they're like, do the research.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, well, I Googled and I didn't see that. So
Yeah.
you tell me where to go research to find this proof of yours.
Watching
Or like, I fly there once a week just to throw rocks at women that don't have hijabs.
I'm just going to interject that we kind of forgot to do at the beginning of the show.
What's that?
And I know we had added a joke and all for Benjamin, but maybe we should announce Benjamin because this is his.
Oh, yeah, because he's a
Oh.
new member.
Well, I was about to congratulate
Oh,
him on the first week, but
Were
thank
you?
you for pulling that now.
Oh, well,
See, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Oh,
Thank you, Ben.
Y'all two are just...
Oh, yeah.
yes. No, this is going to be a new regular occurrence.
Yes.
We're very happy to announce him. Come on
We
now.
are. Ben's a new member of the show, and
Yeah,
he's an old friend with a new thing. So he still has that new Ben smell.
Does totally.
Yes.
New Benjamin smell.
It's a spray, y'all. What's the spray?
Oh, well, thank you so much for being on the show, Benjamin, and thank you to Sabrina and Brentley as well, and thank you for listening to the show. You can find us at leftofthevalley.ca. You can send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com, and you can find us on Facebook or on Twitter at LEDV Podcast. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It helps us and helps others find the show. And you can also become a patron on Patreon.com/LETV. Patreon.com/LETV.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Especially
now,
that.
now we're doing video, and I finally
Yeah.
joined the 21st century.
I'm so proud of you.
Right.
We're good.
Even though they kept telling him that he had a face for radio, here's Kevin.
I
know, right?
Fred, you want to give a quick plug for Unapologetics?
Yeah, we do an Unapologetics panel stream every Wednesday. It's at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, check that out. Unapologetics panel stream, and check out the also just Unapologetics spelled with an X on any podcast player.
Fantastic.
The live stream is unedited. It's fantastic.
It's brilliant.
Yes, it
We
is.
don't do a lot of editing of anything anyway. Coming up next week, we'll have a Black Satanist, Steve Hill.
I'm so
should be
excited
fun.
about that one.
Black guy and a Satanist. Wow, that should be great. We'll have on the 22nd. We'll have the Native Press of Roy Dahl. That will come
missing
talk
that
about
one,
First
too
Nation
bad.
issues, and then we'll also have the deconversion of Nathan Brown coming up, and we'll also have Steve Grumbine of Modern Monetary Theory in September. We'll also have Dr. Todd Frank Miller talking about critical thinking. Sorry, and we'll also have Mary B. Lepage talking about religious trauma. So
We have so many
Nice.
awesome guests coming up. This is going to be a lot of fun.
lots of
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Have a great one.
Woo!
Bye.
Now let me take a sec on me. It sounds so hateful, but I swear to God, unintended, I find it disgraceful.
We'll put the rest out.